Hello chess fans, today I have a very exciting video. I have finally become a national master. So by the Chess Federation of Canada, the way you do that is you get a 2200 plus rating and you achieve 3 performances of over 2300. So here's my first one, here's my next one, and over a year ago is my last one. Okay, so today I wanted to basically show you that how I actually managed to become a national master. So first let's look at my first tournament where I was only around 2090. And this first tournament really set the way for me to get to 2200. So, okay, the tournament's going to load. Okay, yeah, so in this tournament, I managed to actually go 5 out of 5, and I managed to beat some strong players. So at 27, I beat, an unrated player. But this is one of the first problems, is that often when you go for these sort of titles, you will have to play a very low-rated player in the first round. And what that'll do is it'll sort of bring your rating performance down. Now, when I say performance rating, I mean what CFC does is they take 400 over any opponent you beat, 400 under any opponent you lose to. So let's say I beat a 1600, my performance for that game will be 2000. So I really have to avoid anyone who's under 1900. So in this tournament, I was lucky to do that. This was the only guy who I played who was under that rating. Then I beat 1930, then I beat 2000. I beat another 2000 and I beat another 2000. So this tournament I beat 3 2000, a 1900 and a 1500, and I was actually able to get my first norm. So this shows you sort of the pressure on me going into these events because of the fact that if I don't go 5 for 5, if I even draw one game, my performance won't be high enough, even though at that point I'm probably gaining enough rating to be a 2300 player. So that was my first tournament where I achieved over 2300 and I finally achieved the 2200 rating. So that was the first requirement. And then we can see a few tournaments where I managed to stabilize. I sort of started playing well. I started playing at the 2200 level, and then we saw this tournament where I was semi close to a norm. I was at 2275. Now, why did I not get the norm here? Here I beat, I think this was a 1900, this player was a 2100, this player was another 2100. So I'm having a very good event, beating two 2100s and a 1900. Then I lose to this 2400, who was a very strong player. And then in the final round, I'm against this 2000 rated player. And now, of course, this is the worst possible pairing because I'm actually now in a must-win game, even though I've beat two 2100s before. And this shows the start of what really often happened to me, which was that I started making these draws against these lower rated players in the final round because I ended up pushing way too hard. In this game, I played some sort of boring opening, and I got a slightly worse position. And I actually just offered a draw because I was -1, he was +1 or whatever, and I had pretty much no play whatsoever. I had no idea what I was doing in the position, and I thought that I had chances of losing the game, so I offered a draw, and my opponent accepted it because, okay, they're lower rated by 200 points. So this was the start of something that happened to me very often. This happened in the next tournament. I was at 2296 performance, so I actually just barely had to win the last game. And in the last round, I was against number 4, who is a 2000 rated player. In this game, another thing happened. I got a completely losing position, and then I offered a draw. Like, I blundered several times in that game, and I got a completely losing position. I was like -2 or something, and I offered a draw because I realized that I was not thinking right at all, and my opponent accepted, again, because they are a much lower rated player. Because, okay, that's simply a good result for them. So, yeah, this thing happened a few times. At 2296, 2275, it happened again. 2279, same thing happened. Last round, I'm against a 1900 rated player. So in this tournament, I beat three 2000 and I drew a 2200. And now last round, I'm against a 1900 player. I have to make a win to get the norm, to get 4.5 out of 5 because I'm not allowed to lose any games. But instead of that, I get a completely winning position. I completely mess it up. Funnily enough, my opponent actually played an illegal move in that game. But then I completely messed it up, and then, okay, it was a team event, and I saw my top player, who was a 2400, I saw them draw a much lower rated player from a losing position. I was very demoralized, like, we have no chance of even drawing the match anymore. So, like, then I just started playing very badly, and I managed to draw. Now, obviously, that shouldn't have affected me, but it's another opportunity where I had the chance to make the norm. And this is all to say that when you are on your norm journey, there is going to be a lot of times where you are very close. There's going to be a lot of times when you are very, very close to norm, especially when you're coming from Canada, where there's not so many tournaments where you can actually get a norm. Most of the tournaments you go to, these like Sunday regular tournaments or these casual club player tournaments, there's not enough strong players to where you can actually get the norm. So what you have to do is you have to be completely perfect. You have to win every single game. And that's what you sort of have to train your repertoire to do, is to be able to win no matter what. You cannot be making any draws. You cannot be making, okay, if my opponent plays very natural moves, it's a draw, but my opponent probably won't play natural moves. Like, that can't be part of your repertoire anymore. So yeah, as we can see, from my first norm, which was in 2023, it took me a long time to get my second norm, which was actually just a week ago. And this was in a tournament where it's the strongest tournament of my area. The average rating here, I think, is like 2220 or something like that. So a very, very strong tournament. And I only actually went 3 out of 5. I drew in the first round 2200, and then I beat this 2000 rated player who almost had an NM norm himself, who gained like 70 ratings, so he's very underrated. Then I lost to the 2400, who's a very strong player who's beat me many times before, so nothing out of the ordinary. But this is the type of tournament where it gives you that sort of flexibility to actually mess up in one game. Like, I have the ability to lose to this 2400 and still actually make the norm, because in the next round I beat a 2200, and then I finally drew a 2300. The guy placed right above, under me, to actually make the norm. So this was one of the first events where I got the norm. And that's what you sort of have to realize, is that you can't get your norm right away. Even if you get your first norm, you have to be strong enough to get invited to these sort of closed tournaments where you do not have to be getting a perfect score. And that's what makes it much easier. And then recently, my final tournament, which was this tournament just last weekend, which I managed to get 5 out of 5, and the average opponent rating I think was like 1900 or something. First round I beat 1700, or about 1800, and they are now 1800. So first round beat 1800, then I beat a 1900, probably closer to 2000 level, because look, their perf rating is 2099. Then I beat a 2180, and then I beat an 1800, and finally in the last round, the game I'm going to show you, is I beat a 1960. And yeah, that's what the next thing you have to do is you have to always beat these club players consistently. A few things to notice: that a lot of these club players are going to be kids, and they're going to be incredibly underrated, and you are probably going to lose rating on average to these kids because of the fact that they're playing much below their level. But part of getting that title is realizing, okay, even if they are a kid, even if they are underrated, you still need to beat these guys to actually get this title. Even, it doesn't matter what the circumstance is. Every titled player, every player who's very strong, had to come from gaining rating in these tournaments against these people who are underrated, against these people who, go every single weekend to these tournaments and like are weekend warriors. You have to be able to win these games. And that's how I got my final norm. And yeah, we're going to see that in the final round, in the final round of this tournament, I finally did not make the draw against a lower rated player, even though that is something that I've done time and time again. And yeah, that's pretty much my journey. It took me, my first tournament, we can see here, was in 2018, and I was 1600. So it took me around 4-ish years. I think that was like in September or something. No, that was I think that's in July. Yeah, July or June. Yeah, no, it's July. So yeah, that was in July. It took me about 6 years to go from there to National Master. Now, I think that this is probably a very long timeline, because when in 2018 I think I was 13. So yeah, I think that definitely if you were younger than that, you can definitely get that done much quicker than 6 years. Like, to go from 1600 to National Master, say the younger you are, the easier. On average, if you're an adult, it'll probably take you around 6 years. That seems quite reasonable. Maybe not 6 years, depending on how much work you put in, but maybe like some amount of years. And another thing to mention is that in Canada, it's actually much more difficult to become a National Master than in America. In America, you just need the 2200 rating. Canada, you also need the rating performances. Not to mention that the Canadian CFC system, I would say that this is underrated compared to to UCF by probably like 90 points, 100 points, something like that. Most players who go get a USCF rating have like a much higher rating. So yeah, that's it for my discussion. Now we are going to get into the game that I'm going to show you, which actually managed to get me the NM title. Okay, so now we're going to show the game that I played that actually managed to get me to the NM title. So this was against the 1960. It was the final round, and I was playing in a must-win game. So my opponent decided to go for d4, d5, and they played the London. So when you're in a must-win game, the London is one of the perfect options, because there's so many different options for black that they can go for that all equalize and all give chances for winning. So I think London is objectively a very bad choice at our level, but also it gives lots of chances for winning. So here he went e3. Now, actually, in hindsight of this game, I think I should go CD first. But at the time, I really didn't pay attention to the move orders. To give some context for this game, before the game, I I was the highest rated player, so I'm supposed to get the color that I'm supposed to have. So the last round I had black, so I expected white. I spent actually an hour preparing for white. Now, usually I actually wouldn't prepare for a 1960 level player. I would just sort of just wing it. But this game was really important to me because it was for the NM title, so I really wanted to make sure that I had all my bases covered. So here he went for c3. Yeah, I didn't really prepare much at all. I kind of expected knight f3 because I think that's sort of what's become the main line, but c3 is still completely playable. I think c3 is sometimes considered a little bit inaccurate because of like some early queen b6 or something. But okay, it shouldn't make a big difference. But here I went cd, and now it actually maybe does make a big difference because maybe he can go cd. And then this is just transposed to the exchange Slav, but like, yeah, here I really don't think white has any problems. Probably white's just slightly better, like knight c3 here. I can't continue normally. I think I can continue normally. Like if here I can go bishop f5 because I can meet knight b5 with rook c8. So maybe that's why this is not such an accurate move to go e3. Maybe you should go knight c3 first. But okay, again, I don't really play the exchange Slav, so maybe this is a mistake allowing this. So instead he took with the e pawn, and I went bishop f5, developing a piece. And yeah, I could also go knight f6. Those are both playable, but bishop f5 is more natural. And here he already surprised me. Here I only knew knight f3, and the line continues with e6, and okay, the line goes on and on. But he went queen b3. Here I had a little bit of a think, queen d7, and now he went knight e3. So I didn't even know if this made a difference during the game. At this point I actually was just completely unfamiliar with the theory, because okay, I sort of didn't prepare much, and I couldn't remember what I'm supposed to do. And here I spent a while thinking. So the first thing that you should probably consider are all your checks and captures. So here my opponent actually told me after the game I have takes, and queen f5. And during the game he couldn't tell if he was losing or winning here. Now I actually didn't see this at all in the game. And yeah, this is a very bad thing to completely just overlook. I should have at least calculated this. Here I think white has the winning move, queen takes b7. And I actually have no way to defend. For example, if I take here, he goes king d2. And now my rook's hanging with check. So let's say I save the rook with the only move, which is rook d8, then he goes check here and knight e5, and I'm actually just completely lost, I think. Okay, maybe not knight e5. Oh, queen c8 is made after bishop b5. Yeah. So actually, yeah, I can lose very, very, very quickly. So maybe it's a good thing I didn't waste my time calculating this, but yeah, I didn't even consider that. The main move I wanted to play here was f6. And yeah, I'm not actually entirely sure why I didn't play f6. I was mainly worried about this move c4, in which case my plan was to go knight a5, but then I really wasn't sure what is happening in this position. For example, I guess here, yeah, the engine really, really hates this, but I was scared of something like this type of position, and it didn't look incredibly clear to me, something like this. Yeah, I guess it's supposed to be good for me, but okay, during the game I found it hard to believe, but after e6, c4 is just not a possibility because, okay, at least I can take and go here, and yeah, this is much more obvious to me. The pawn on e6 is better than f6. Bishop b4 is also an idea, so he wouldn't go c4. So instead he went bishop b5, and now he's threatening this move knight e5. So here I pretty much have to go for this move f6, preventing this, and also allowing for this g5 move. And here he went knight b2, which I thought was really clever. If he castles right away, g5, h5, they come with an attack on a king, but when he goes knight b2, he can also castle queenside. And yeah, here I spent a long time. Now I knew that g5 is somewhat of an idea, and I've been out of theory for a while, but okay, it took me some time to realize that, okay, g5 is actually very strong. His bishop's getting kicked back, and after h4, g4, knight g1, I have all my pieces very nicely developed. I control the full center, and I have a lot of space on the king side. So even though this looks like it's breaking a lot of opening principles, it's actually a pretty decent position. And if you ever castle this way, this bishop's doing a great job. The main reason that this is good is because this bishop is an absolute anchor. It's an amazing bishop which covers e6, covers g4, covers this diagonal, and his light squared bishop cannot really oppose me. So here I went for knight g7. Now this is actually a very accurate move. At this point I really started thinking quite a lot, because up to this point I think that my moves have been really natural. But okay, if you're wondering, the idea of h5 is to go h4 and trap the bishop, so he plays there. But after knight g7, the moves start becoming more unnatural. Now the reason I played knight g7 is because I thought the bishop could commit this way, could commit this way, but the knight is always going to g7, so I might as well put the knight on g7. And we're going to see this is kind of the point of my next few moves. So knight e2, and now here I have my one chance to win this light squared bishop with a6. Notice the bishop can't go back here. If it goes back to a4, I trap it with b5, so he has to take. And then here I took with the knight. Actually, here I should probably take with the queen so that I can have this bind on c4, but knight takes is also fine. Here he castled. And again, here I started doing that thing where my pieces don't necessarily know where they're going to be. Like, do I want my bishop on e7? It could go to g7. It could go to h6. It could go to d6. My king could castle. My king could go to f7. My king could go queenside. My rook could go to d8. My rook could go to c8. There's so many different options here that I thought I need to keep the most flexible. I spent maybe 10 minutes play this move rook c8, which I thought is a very natural move. I'm always turning knight a5, knight c4 now. The rook covers any c4 break in case my king goes to f7, so I thought it was a very flexible move. And I also prepare e4 ideas with maybe takes here, like if this knight moves here, like maybe I have some idea like this, and then bishop c2, trapping the queen. Queen has b6 here, but we're going to see in the game, this idea is very relevant, and it's an idea that I have seen before. Okay, so rook fe1, he's aligning himself with my king, and again, I don't know where the bishop wants to go. It could go to e7, which is my other move I was considering. It could go h6, I was also considering this. But now I know the king wants to be on f7. I'm covering this c4 idea because now I can just take it. And also I get off the e-file. So again, here I thought I was playing some really, really nice chess. Rook ac1. And finally, I think here I make a kind of bad move. Here I should probably just go like b5 or something. And then clamp down here, look for b4 in the future. But I ended up playing this move bishop h6. Now bishop h6 in hindsight is actually just a bad move. And it's because I sort of underestimated his idea. Like when I played bishop h6, okay, the first thing I obviously thought was like if he goes like knight f4, I can go e5, I thought, and if takes, I have here. And if he takes with the queen, then I just take and then win this. So I thought that he's just losing after this. So he can't go knight f4, and then so the other move I was thinking of was queen d1, which he ended up playing, which is a very bad move. But then after playing this, like I saw this move bishop f4, and my idea was to go bishop g7, and now e5 comes with tempo. But after playing this, I realized he just has bishop e3 here. Then after e5, I have nothing. He can just hold this securely. It's not like I have enough attackers to actually put pressure on it, and he's absolutely never going to take here. He's just going to hold this point on d4, and I have no play whatsoever. He can go knight g3 next. Ideas like that. Maybe queen d1, knight b3. Like, I really have no ideas here. And my bishop is not pinning here. Thankfully for me, he went queen d1. Now I saw bishop f4 as a threat, so I had to prevent it with e5. And at this point, my position is very, 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 very nice. I think up to this point, I've like pretty much completely outplayed my opponent, played a very nice game. And yeah, my opponent really has no play. He can't move anything. He can't move the knight or else he loses the exchange. Can't move this knight anywhere. I mean, rook f1 doesn't even do anything. So like queen b3, he just came from queen b3, or can't even move the queen because here king h2 maybe is a decent move, but then I can start improving with like rook e8 and stuff. Threaten takes, some idea like this, and then put the pin on, take here, there's a pin here. I don't know, it gets unpleasant, queen a4. So like I have a lot of ideas, he has nothing. So here he played the move rook a1. And okay, I'm looking at the game, I'm looking at the board, I'm just like, he just played rook a1? Like what is he doing? Like I actually expected this move rook a1. Like I thought, okay, it's the most natural human move, but like okay, actually playing rook a1 is just like, you just went rook c1, now you're going rook a1. Okay, I'm here, I'm feeling very, very good. I'm feeling like, okay, I'm definitely winning now. And now I just take here. His idea, obviously, he wants to go knight b3. So after a little bit of thought, I just take here because I saw him winning a pawn. If he takes back, what's the move for black? Yep, it's knight b4, and he has actually no way to stop this fork. Or if he goes rook c1, what's the move? Bishop c2. And the queen is actually trapped. So he has to take, and then rook f1, and okay, he's just lost. Maybe actually here even takes with the rook is better attacking here. I'm not sure. Knight b3, takes here. This might be better. Maybe, I'm not sure. But okay, at least I'm just completely winning there. So he can't take back. If he takes back with the knight, then I go takes, bishop c2 here, and rook e8. And if the queen moves off here, I take the knight. So again, we're seeing this idea of bishop c2 be critical. So he has to go for this move, knight b3. And here I missed my winning chance. And the winning move is actually just d3. Now, I was afraid of here takes, like something like rook e8. And I thought this position wasn't that clear for me. Apparently, this is just very, very clear. But yeah, I think this is very, very engine-like. Like, it doesn't even entirely make sense to me still why black is just like -3 here. And also, not to mention, knight e4 was also scary. Here, apparently, I have knight e5. Okay. my connection is kind of bad. But yeah, apparently here he also doesn't have a move. Like here, just takes, knight g6, bishop g3, d4. Like, okay, this is like completely unobvious to me. Still. Okay, so yeah, here I just took here without much thought. I considered d3 briefly, but those two responses deterred me from playing it. He took back, and here I just started realizing that my position is actually very difficult. And yeah, here I ended up playing actually a very big blunder, a huge blunder, which completely destroys all my advantage. Here I'm up a pawn, I have the bishop pair, my king's a little weak, and my pawns on the king side are overextended, but okay, I'm not worse. But here I decided to play this move, rook hd8, horrible blunder. For a long time here I wanted to play this move b6, but I was worried about knight f4. And it's really difficult to defend this. Now if I go here, he can go knight h5 and win his pawn back, and I thought it's just very unclear. Now here, apparently what I'm supposed to do, b6 actually is the best move. I'm just supposed to take, and then go here. And yeah, I just didn't even really consider this, giving up my bishop pair. We have opposite colored bishops. I'm only up a pawn. Like, it wasn't so clear to me. So instead I went rook hd8 with the idea that on knight f4, now I have knight e5. Then if he takes here, I have knight d3, rook f1, and king g6. And the knight's trapped. It can't go back to f4 because I just take it, and he can't go anywhere else. Now, apparently here there's this dirty engine line. f3 takes, and then he takes here, which I actually didn't see in the game. Hopefully I would have seen it if it happened over the board, which is why this might be better, followed by queen f5. But okay, I would hope that I would see that in the game, which I think I would. So yeah, here though, I realized I blundered knight c5. That was my whole idea of b6, was to stop knight c5. I thought I could just go queen e7 now that the pawn was defended, but here he has knight d4, queen takes c5, knight takes f5, and then something like this, bishop f8, queen d3. And here during the game I thought, okay, I'm worse here because he has all these threats of queen c7, he has a million different threats. But apparently here, without this move d4, I'm actually just lost. Like any other move just loses to knight e3, queen h7, which is just very, very crazy to me. Like, he can completely open up my king. But okay, apparently after d4 takes, something like this would happen. This is the engine line, and I'm losing here, but okay, maybe I can draw. So yeah, okay, my opponent has to see a long engine line that they're winning, but instead they go for the natural move knight f4, and then I go knight e5, and now knight c5 is covered, knight d3 is a threat, I'm threatening this. And now here they just completely blunder, they go knight d4, and I just took. Now here actually I spent a long time calculating rook takes c3, but I didn't like the position after not takes there. If he takes there, I have rook d3. But I saw he had knight e2, and I actually didn't like this position for me because something like this. Okay, that's the engine line, but even knight d4, I saw my pawns are getting blockaded, and I might be losing this immediately. So yeah, here I didn't really see like queen d7 here. I didn't really see what I was doing. So I ended up rejecting that. And also I thought the c3 pawn is weak. So then I just took here, and went knight d3 with this fork. And you might say like, okay, wait, isn't this obvious? But you should always consider all your options even when it looks like you have a winning one. Queen d2, takes. And from here on, my technique got really sloppy. Here what I should really do is go rook c4 because he can't, or I guess he can move this. But I just am putting pressure right away. Instead of that, I went bishop g6, which allowed him to go for this move rook e6. Which he ended up not going for. The threat is to go rook d6, and I have no good way to defend this. But okay, he went bishop g3 here, rook c1, I went king g7. King g7 is sort of a mysterious move, probably unnecessary. And actually in the game, it ended up biting me in the butt that I went king g7. I went rook e7 so I can move my queen. Because this was attacking here. I went rook c8, king h2, rook e1, takes, a4, rook e8, a5. Like, so now I have a complete lockdown. And maybe here actually, what I should have considered at any point was going rook b1, and then bishop e4, defending here, and then the a4 pawn is weak. But okay, I let him get a5, and notice I can't take that because he can take on b7. So rook e8 here, rook c8. Now he goes knight e6, and at this point I realized that I actually completely messed things up. I really had to keep this here. I really needed to go king f7 to prevent knight e6, but after knight e6, king f7, I should have gone king g8 or king h7. I just really wasn't thinking clearly at this point. I was really low on time. I think my opponent is at like 15 minutes. I'm at like 20. So we both have barely any time. I'm feeling the nerves. I really need this. I go queen c6, and then he goes knight b7. And at this point, I realize I'm lost. I was counting on takes, and then just takes here, and I'm just completely winning. But like knight d6, I'm just completely winning. But yeah, I just forgot that he can just take with the knight first, and now if I take here, he can just promote the pawn pretty much with knight d6 next. And I'm just lost. So yeah, here I played maybe a very, very nice move. So here I think I spent like 5 minutes on this move, but I played what I think is the best move. I think it's the engine's second favorite move, but okay, I think my move is good too. So take a few seconds, see if you can find the best move here. So the best move is king g8. And the reason is he's turning knight d6, and I have to get out of that fork. If I move the rook anywhere, there's nowhere good to move the rook because I lose my queen. If I take here, which some of you might have also been thinking, he's just going to take back and I just lose. So I have to go king g8. It's the only move just to prevent knight d6. Now if he goes knight d6, I can just take. For example, now if knight d6, I think I can just go... I'm pretty sure I can just take, go rook b8, and if here, there's no more checks. This was also a problem... And oh yeah, sorry. The reason for king g8 and not king g7 is that after bishop here, I thought that maybe he has some knight f5 checks knight e7, which we're going to see as matters in a second. So he went bishop f4, which I guess is a move, but it allows me to go for this move bishop f7, which actually, this position I spent 15 minutes, and I probably should have asked you to find the move here, because bishop f7 is the only move that actually gives any winning chances, and it's actually a very, very, very ingenious move. So the problem with taking here is after takes, I go d4 with the idea to bring the bishop to this diagonal. He can go takes, let's say rook c6, bishop c7, defending the pawn. Bishop e4, he has knight d6, which comes on a tempo with a tempo on this. Now if I move this, he goes b7 and he wins. So what I'd have to do is go takes, and here I'm not losing, but I'm not winning either. And obviously I need to win this game. So my thought process was, okay, so if I take immediately, the bishop on e4 is not really ideal. So what if the bishop was on d5? Which is what I thought, which is why I went bishop f7. Now when I sacrifice, he doesn't get that tempo. And if he ever goes, for example, he went knight d8. But if he goes for a move like king g1, or what did the move I had? Like if he goes like bishop g3, now I can take, go d4, rook c6 here. And now I can just go here. Because if he ever goes here, I can go bishop d5. And if he ever pushes, I take, and then take here. And there's no tempo with knight d6. There's no free move he gets. So this would be just completely winning for me after like a5 or something like that. So yeah, so I thought this was a very, very brilliant idea that I managed to find with just like 5 minutes left. So he ended up going knight d8. And now here actually, I went for takes. Here apparently I should go for here. Takes, king takes, something like this. Now, I think this is very difficult to play because, okay, he has a passed pawn after this. It's not very that natural. It's not very natural to allow this, but okay, this was the best way to win. Instead I took, and after b7, here I went king f8. Now, I thought this was winning for me at the time. Now, actually, I did see a move. So see if you can take a few seconds to see if you can find a move, or maybe I should go back here to see if you can find what the drawing plan for white is. Here, I think white has... in this position, what I think is not so difficult a draw. Now later the draw becomes very, very difficult, so maybe my opponent should not have allowed that. But yeah, here my opponent I think has 30 seconds. Drawing this is like with 30 seconds against a higher rated opponent, like it's pretty much near impossible. So yeah, here the drawing move I was afraid of is b7. Yeah, that's good, king f8. But here bishop c7, and I actually saw no way to draw here. I mean, I saw no way to win here because I have to go rook e8, because I have to stay connected to this b8 square, and I can't defend this because he just takes and promotes. So I'd have to go rook e8, then he would go bishop d6, and after king g7, now he would promote, take, and after king g6, he go this move f3, and I can't approach. And so this would be a pretty shut and closed draw. I think maybe a sample line might continue like this. Like the line is still not ridiculously easy, but okay, in this position I think it can pretty clearly be seen that's a draw. I have no way to approach the pawns. So this was actually just a draw. That's what my opponent had to see, which was this bishop c7 move. But they ended up going b8 without really thinking. Now, it's actually still a draw, and which is why I should have gone for that position up the exchange. It's still a draw, but okay, actually now it becomes kind of difficult. So here I took. Yeah, takes, king e7. I have to go there to prevent bishop d6 to allow him to get back. King g3, a5. Now notice I'm very lucky. The square of the pawn is right here. The king is just outside the square of the pawn. So he can't go king f4. Or so we both thought. Here, king f4 is the only drawing move. Idea is king d7, king e3, king here. If I run, his king gets over. So that's not why we thought that was a draw. We thought this was bad because of a4. But here he has bishop a7. Let's say like king d6, getting my king into the game. Bishop d4. Let's say a3. And now the key move c4. And after takes, bishop takes f6. This position is a complete draw because the bishop will just stand on c3. The king will stand on d2, and I have no way to get in. There's no square you can put the king on, b3 or b1. Or actually, if you can put it on b1, maybe you're doing good. But after king a2, I can go king c1. And then, yeah, there's just no way to do anything. So, yeah, this would just be a complete fortress. But okay, that's again very, very difficult to see. I think it also highlights the fact that in endgames, material really does not matter. Neither do passed pawns. It's all about activity and creating fortresses. Or at least in opposite color bishops. But instead of that, he went bishop f4, which I think is probably just a losing move. Now, on low depth, the engine gives like -1, but I think this position is probably just losing. Because after king d7, I'm curious, is there a drawing move? Oh, bishop e3 still draws, with the idea to meet king c6 with here. Okay, yeah, this is still a familiar draw. Though this is now... Okay, it's definitely scary. King c1 here. Well, that allows this, does it not? Oh, king takes c4, keeping the d pawn. Okay. King d2. If I go a2, it's a draw because of c4. King c4, king c1. Bishop d3. Yeah, it's just incredibly complicated. So it's hard to say whether this position is still a draw, but after bishop c1, it's definitely a win for me. It's just too passive. I bring my king in, and his king is just too slow. Next, I push the pawn up the board. And yeah, in this position, he resigned the game. So yeah, just an absolute roller coaster of a game. I was so excited to win this game after. I was smiling so much because I realized that I finally achieved the goal that I have set out for so long. So is it the end? No, I hope to probably get some more titles one day. But at least right now, I'm very happy because I put in a lot of work over the summer to finally achieve the title. I went to a few tournaments in different provinces and I wasn't able to achieve it. But okay, finally in the local tournaments, I was able to achieve all my norms actually. In all my 3 norms were all in Nova Scotia tournaments. So yeah, I was just very ecstatic with this game. I managed to win, and it was definitely a game where I think that if both me and my opponent were less tired, this was the final round. We both had no time. We were both very tired. I was very stressed out because I was in must-win mode, and I know I blundered several times. After this game, I knew I played a terrible game, but like, okay, sometimes if you and your opponent are in the last round, that's what's going to happen. So yeah, very happy with this game. If you guys like this video, please remember to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll update you on my road to my next title, which should be either CM or FM. So I'll see you guys in the next one.